Hi, and welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. My name is Aaron Kavanagh, and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. This is our website's podcast where we interview people from various artistic disciplines. These episodes are sometimes full-length interviews from our site's articles and other times exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back, and if you're new here, thanks for checking us out. We hope you'll like it and stick around with us. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we speak with the Nashville-based musician Caroline Romano. Caroline talks to us about her brutally honest new single, Used by You, becoming a musician despite her introversion, the Nashville music scene, what this new single means for her career trajectory, her first nationwide tour which is coming up, and more.
Hi,
Hi Caroline, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Happy Valentine's Day, which I think is
Valentine's Day.
appropriate
Yeah,
given what we're going to
absolutely.
be talking about.
Absolutely. You're in
Um,
Ireland?
yeah, Dublin.
Awesome. What time is it over there?
It's 3 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Thanks very much for doing this. It's nice talking
Thanks
to
for
you.
having me.
Yeah. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask, I mean, you kind of like bill yourself as being kind of like an introvert who's like very. What's the exact term you use? The loudest introvert, or
Yeah, the loudest sort of introvert is kind of how I picked it.
I was wondering, like, when it comes to kind of like music and musical performance as an expression for an introvert. I mean, because I mean there are plenty more, I guess, like artistic expressions that would probably be more fitting of someone who's introverted.
Hmm.
I was wondering what it was about wanting to be a performer, wanting to be a musician, um, that kind of um that kind of attracted you, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like I felt like I had no choice. Like I just have always known that this is what was meant for me. It's the only thing um that has ever made me feel like I'm truly myself, which is so like the antithesis of being an introvert, but like
Mhm.
stepping those brief moments on stage or like when I truly feel like so unencumbered and so free and like the truest form of myself. And I'm very blessed that I like found music at an early age and that I was able to like pursue it the way I have because I don't know how I'd handle myself without it really.
Yeah, actually, what was that like when you first started like performing live? Because I believe like you were a teenager, right? Like doing open mics, is that correct?
Yeah, I played my first show in Nashville when I was 13, and my songs were like terrible. And I got up there with my guitar. But there's something about being 13 and I guess it's dumb that you're like, I can do this. This is easy. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think had I started later than that, maybe I would have like had a little bit more of like a guard up. But because I started so early, I was kind of just not worried about it. I was probably not as worried as I should have been about it for sure.
Actually, was Nashville kind of an accommodating place for? Because I know it's like a huge musical hub. I know I forget who I have talked with Nashville artists before, and they were kind of saying um that everyone there can kind of play under the table. Everyone's like really good, but it's not a very hostile community. It's actually very welcoming. It's very accommodating. Was that your experience with Nashville as well, or?
100%. Like it's crazy how there's just so much enormous talent and this is everyone's livelihood and everyone's working towards the same goal, but everyone is just trying to come up together. I don't think I've ever had like a negative or competitive experience in Nashville, which is amazing.
Yeah, because are you originally from Nashville, or did you move there?
I'm from Mississippi originally, so like 7 hours south originally. So
Okay,
kind of
cool.
the same
So,
thing. Yeah.
so what attracted you to Nashville to kind of go there? Was it just its reputation as a musical hub, or?
Definitely. And I had watched, I remember I was like 11 or 12 and I'd watched this documentary that Taylor Swift put out like about she was like I went to Nashville. I was like
Yeah.
easy. That's how you do it. Easy, let's go. My parents were like, "Okay, we'll take her." But yeah.
That's cool. So, like, what was Nashville kind of good for, like, I guess younger artists in the sense that like were bars there like 21 plus, was there venues for like all ages, or did you have difficulty as a performer trying to actually get slots?
I did have difficulty. I it's gotten a lot better as like the pop scene has come up. I think my first trip here was 2014, 2015. And I remember for a lot of shows, like I would have to wait outside, rain, shine, cold, whatever. And then I was
Yeah.
only allowed in the venue for the brief 30 minutes that I was on stage and I had to leave. But
Yeah.
a lot of times they're just like, no, you can't play here. But it got better. And I think there's a lot more all ages venues here now, which is cool.
they didn't give bar chips to like a 13-year-old, I hope.
Yeah. It was crazy. They always had my mom always had to be with me. It was a fun little time for sure.
And then like I was doing the maths here. So your first single release that's publicly available is Masterpiece, which came out in 2017. If I was doing the maths correct, you would have been around 15 or 16 when that came out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I was about to turn 16 when that song came out, which was
Yeah.
crazy.
What was that like getting to like actually do your first kind of like professional song and kind of like what was the period in between kind of like starting and doing open mic nights to actually releasing a single? What was that kind of like time like?
Yeah, I mean, it was me just kind of getting here and realizing, okay, I don't know what I'm really doing, so I need to like work here and figure it out and like figure out how to write good songs and get in rooms with people. So that was a lot of that 2 to 3 year period. I actually did put music out in between that time that I took down afterwards because like this cannot see the
Okay.
light of day anymore. I put out like 4 songs. But getting to put out a song like to that capacity with like another artist who was so like established in the industry already was super cool. And I remember being at school back in Mississippi, and just like it coming out, everyone was like, "Is this you?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." I had a
Yeah.
little double life there, but it was awesome, and I'm really grateful for that to be my first experience putting out like an actual like song.
Actually, as kind of an introvert, what's that like then when you actually see like fellow students like listen to your music? And was it, I don't know, was it like were they doing it to be dicks or were they just genuinely like, hey, this is cool?
It was a bit of both. I was terrified. Like I was someone I did not talk to people in school. I was so quiet and no one knew that I did this like every weekend that I was going up to Nashville and doing this. So some people were genuinely just curious. Some people, I mean, like people were calling me Hannah Montana for a minute, and that's not mean, but I was like, it's fine. So there were some mean people, but it was also just like I was just terrified for people to know anything about me in school.
Yeah, actually, because like I guess that's like even if you're not introverted, it is kind of like there is that kind of consideration for I guess like how other people are going to perceive you regardless. So in general, like when you kind of had that like sort of experience, I mean, did that kind of like make everything then kind of easier? Like,
I'm sorry, you froze for a second. What did you say when
oh,
you read?
sorry, what did that make things easier then once you realized people were kind of like listening to your music again, whether it was out of genuine curiosity or just kind of like to be dicks?
I think it made it a little easier. Like once it finally, like the band-aid was finally ripped off and like everyone knew I was like, it's cool. And then there were people who were like, I am listening to your music and it's good and you're cool. I was like, that's awesome. But yeah, I think I kind of just like, I'm just gonna keep doing this because it's what I want to do. And whether people like it or not, I really can't think too much about that. But it definitely got a little easier after the initial first time.
And then when you were kind of getting that studio time and when you were kind of performing live, were you kind of like taking interest in the other aspects of music, like were you kind of like looking at what the engineer was doing, were you kind of curious about that kind of aspect too, or were you just like honed in on songwriting and performing?
Totally. I've always found it like fascinating production as a whole. I actually ended up taking a few classes when I first like got my own place here in 2019 at Belmont. I took a production classes because I was very interested in that. And it's not where my brain naturally wires. I'm not very good at it, but I am very
Mhm.
fascinated with it. And I love being able to know what I'm talking about when I'm like talking to the producer about what I want. But during that time, I was definitely like, whoa, this is crazy. I had no idea what was going on. But I've always been much of like a head down, like songwriter kind of person.
Yeah.
So very interested, but not participating.
Okay. And then actually you mentioned there 2019 you moved to Nashville. So what was the I guess the lockdown measures when COVID hit in in Tennessee? Was it were you able to continue doing stuff like live performances or even just like getting studio time, or was everything completely locked down, or how was it in Tennessee?
Yeah, it was crazy. I had just like fully gotten settled here and I came home for my dad's birthday, like that March, and I just never went back because I was already home. I was only supposed to be there
Yeah.
for like 3 days. So I spent the majority of the lockdown in Mississippi, but however, like I had just had that song, a song come out with that DJ Rehab, who it ended up being like one of my biggest songs. And so
Yeah.
it was actually one of my busiest times in life, but just working remotely, like him on the other side of the country, me here. We came up here to do a few like press things in music videos that summer once things got more opened up. But Nashville was very, 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 very locked down. Like I don't think many sessions were had other than like in studio home sessions during that time.
In a weird way, I mean, like, do you find that that kind of like, I don't know, like that kind of experience of having to do things kind of remotely, kind of, did you find it like retrospectively now to be beneficial, or do you think it was just like a hindrance?
I think it was very beneficial. I think that time I needed that time to like kind of get some perspective about like I'm starting out, this is what's important, this is what's not, and like just the being able to balance it all and the fact that I saw that I was able to still do some stuff from my home like helped a lot. And I also just think like just having the time to not be go 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 all the time was kind of necessary.
Yeah. And then so talking about like kind of your career now, I mean like obviously there's been like huge shifts I think in terms of your sound. But I was wondering from you, because like from an outsider's perspective, I'm like listening to the music and I can kind of hear, I guess like I don't know, like real distinct kind of eras, if you want to put it like that, to
Mhm.
go back to Taylor Swift. But I was wondering from your perspective, do you find the music has those kind of like dramatic shifts, or do you think it's all kind of from your perspective consistent? How do you perceive it, I guess?
I would say I get told all the time, what is your sound? What is your genre? No one has any idea. And I totally
Yeah.
like get that. And I apologize to those people. But I think like the only common thread is like my voicings and my subject matters. But yeah, I think growing up, it's almost impossible to pick a genre. When I first started out, I was writing music where there were a lot of adults around me saying, I've always been a naturally like sad, depressive kind of person. And I was writing music like that at the time. But they were like, maybe this isn't the best way to start your entire career off by doing this at 15. So I was putting out really pop music, which I'm proud of, and it's up and like I'm happy with that. But also like as I started growing older and like getting a voice, that sound kind of shifted with me. And it does like shift with me through seasons. I think that's why it works for people like Taylor Swift. Like an EP I put out last summer is very soft and poetic and almost grieving. And the music I'm putting out now is almost like the aftermath of that like anger and just a little bit of like sporadicness of being young and 22. So yeah, I think it's just gonna grow with me. I don't really know what the genre is yet. Somewhere between alternative and rock and pop. I don't know.
I think actually you're in kind of a good position in time where it's like, I think now people are, because of like maybe streaming culture or what have you. I mean, I think people are a lot more receptive to changing musical trends in a way.
Mhm.
Like people, I think, are a little more, because I think like before, like back when vinyl or even CD or something was your only means of getting music, people had to kind of like lock in and kind of go, okay, this is what I'm kind of committed to, because there was a financial
Mhm.
incentive, right? Where now I think with like streaming culture and things being ostensibly free, there's a lot more kind of willingness to take chances on things that they mightn't otherwise have done if they had to pay
Mhm.
for like a full album or something. I was
Totally.
wondering, do you find that you're kind of like, I don't know, like what you're doing could kind of exist in a different point in time?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the weirdest point in time, I think, to be a musician. Like, I think to be anybody really, but like, it's so, you've got so much opportunity, but also everyone's doing everything, so all the bases are covered. And I guess there's a lot of freedom in that. Like, there's nothing, no one sitting here telling me you can't do that, or else
Yeah,
record press will freak out.
sure.
So I think it's an awesome time to be a musician. I think people are very open and receptive to everything, which I love, but it's also just competing in a way bigger market than ever before.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like there's so much like competition like vying for your attention. I mean, not even just music, I mean just anything like,
Mhm.
it seems like we're kind of like, I mean, this isn't obviously an original thought, but like we're so inundated with like stuff just popped up on our phones, or just like uh stuff that's trying to like compete for our attention, that like it can just feel like you're swimming in a very big sea or something, and trying to
Totally.
get people to like notice you. I was wondering how you kind of um you find like you kind of attract an audience, or how you kind of I don't know, find the people who are interested in what you're doing.
It's something I struggle with, but I found like anytime I'm trying to be like, I'm trying to get your attention, like really focusing on it, that does not work. Like I have to just basically just set a camera up. And I really don't even normally talk that often on social media, like on in person, just because I feel like I'm very awkward in front of that form of camera. I'll just
Hmm.
like I'll let the song do its thing. I'll just like set it down and put the lyrics immediately and just be honest. I'll like write something about like what I'm experiencing, and those seem to be the things that like where I'm just not trying as hard that resonate the most. And then just like yeah, just putting out stuff that I think is real is always going to get people's attention somehow.
Yeah, and actually, one thing I wanted to ask as well, because you were mentioning like how you kind of like started like at the very beginning doing like kind of open mics and stuff. I still think, and I'd like to know your opinion on this, but I think like live performances are still the best means of attracting an audience in the sense that I don't know how to explain it, but it kind of feels like when you see a band live, you're having like an actual, or an artist live, you're having like an actual experience. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
feels like a lot more personal than just like watching someone on your monitor or something, you know?
Totally, totally.
And it's kind of like, cause I was just, I go to like see like local acts and stuff around town. And I don't know, like it attracts me a lot more when I'm kind of like, oh, it's like, I don't know, it's like, it sticks with me more. It has more resonance, I guess, is what I'm
Totally.
trying
I
to say.
agree.
Do you find that way too? Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like the best connection, like I've made more fans live than I have ever like online. And
Yeah.
they're more like lifelong, like they're gonna stick with you. And I'm the same way, like I go and see an artist and that's how for me I know I'm gonna fall in love with them is if I see them live. Just because they, like you can just see their interpretation of what they're actually trying to say through their music, like right in front of you. And
Yeah.
I think like just watching everyone connect on both ends from the stage and the audience is like something that cannot be replicated through a phone. So yeah, I agree.
So, but in a way, I mean, that seems like kind of again antithetical to kind of introverted people, I guess, in the sense that like again, like do you find it easy to kind of communicate with a mass audience like that in a way? Because like it's very hard to explain because like I think people think like introvert and extrovert it's like a kind of binary thing or one or the other, but I
Mhm.
think like there are sort of certain control conditions, I guess, where people can thrive as extroverts. And I was wondering for you, do you find like live performing is one of them, or?
Totally. I think like that's how I figured out like, oh, this is so for me because like I physically get sick sometimes like thinking about like making a phone call or like going through
Yeah,
a drive-through or something.
sure.
And I'm like horrible at basic interaction, but when I get on stage, it's like something clicks and I am not afraid. And people are receptive to me and I'm receptive to people. And it's like, feels like the moments I'm waiting my whole life to feel those like brief few moments on stage for. So yeah, I can't explain it and I probably never will be able to, but it is like where I thrive for sure.
Yeah. I want to talk about your new single. It's called "Used by You." And actually, before I talk about it, I wanted to ask the release date. I have two dates here. So I have the
Yeah.
16th and the 23rd.
It's the 23rd because I freaked out and I pushed it back because I was like, I don't know if I should put this song out. But I did. And then I had to push it back a week so I could
Cool.
promote it. Yeah.
Well, talking about the song, like it has a lyric here I wrote down. I'd rather be used by you than you be something I lose. And my interpretation of the song is that it's kind of like the press release said it was about unreciprocated love, but I kind of feel more like I don't know, like how do I describe it? Kind of like in a relationship in a circumstance where um I find it's actually more a song about kind of like self-confidence in a way than it is about the relationship or that kind of dynamic. Yeah, I was wondering like if maybe you could kind of like expand on it and what the song is about.
Yeah. I mean, the song definitely touches on the lack of confidence, I guess, in that area of my life and feeling like you
Yeah.
have to do those things in order to keep somebody. I think that's like definitely evident in the song. And it's probably one of the reasons I was like, I don't know if I want to put the song out because it doesn't make me look very good. And
Mm.
that scared me a little bit, but it's true. And like, I think I was sending the song around to some of my friends and they were like, this is like very true of what happens when you're young. A lot of the time is like you're so like everyone wants someone to love and they'll do things to themselves to make themselves less in order to keep that, or at least the
Mhm.
perception of that. And I mean, used by you is basically just like about a situation like where you're kind of in something with somebody, but they're not fully in it with you, and they're kind of running around on you, at least from personal experience, but you're trying to just blinders on, overlook it for like the little moments where they're nice and good, and not think about the rest, because you'd rather like hate yourself than like like hate being alone without them, kind of thing. And it's like a brutal song. It's not fun, and there's no like reprise where it's like, yeah, but I'm awesome, and there's none of that.
Sure.
And so I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I'm just trying to be honest. So
Yeah, it's very real. It's very like it's very raw. Yeah, it's like one thing I was wondering, like as I was kind of listening to it, I mean, like do you think then about like the potential audience who'd be listening to it? Because like whether this is fair or not, I think it's true to say that people who are in circumstances in life do kind of um take song lyrics or the art that they're consuming and kind of adapt it to their own lives and to their own circumstance. Was that ever a consideration you had of like, okay, what if someone who's in this circumstances like listening to the song, or do you have to um kind of like take that out of the equation in order to be able to create art?
I mean, I think about it a little bit about it both. Like I try to just write what I'm feeling because I know that that's what someone else is experiencing. But I, on the other end, like I do know there are people out there actively in the middle of like situations like that, and
Sure.
putting out a song like that, I'm hoping that listening to it makes them feel like, A, I'm not alone and like a bad person to myself and like just weak, because I felt like that. I was like, why am I so willing to do this? But then I was talking to other people and they're like, no, everyone does this.
Yeah.
And I also just hope it like, I don't know, offer something they can scream to them in the car, like, or something, some
Yeah.
emotion for them.
It's a sense of catharsis, I guess, for not only
Yeah,
yourself but for the listener too.
totally. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think you froze.
My back.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's a sense of catharsis for both you and the listener.
Totally, totally like a cathartic moment. Like, and sometimes that's all you need is like just something to relate to in order to kind of like even wake you up or pull you out of a situation like that sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, I was wondering then, so I think like as you were mentioning, kind of like a brief epic, your recent EP, I think like set a new, I don't know, kind of like a new precedent perhaps for the music you have kind of going forward. And I think actually, Used by You is kind of in that sort of lineage, I guess. Yeah, I was wondering like what do you think your music is going to be, sort of going forward? I mean, because like I think like in general, as you listen to new things, as you kind of like expand your own sort of palette as a listener, automatically that just kind of like opens up like new ideas of what you want to do with your music. I was wondering how much also of your music is kind of like dictated by what you're listening to at any given time. And obviously that's going to fluctuate and change. You're kind of like new stuff is going to come out. You're also going to rediscover old stuff, obviously, like
Mhm.
everyone else, like every listener of music.
Yeah.
It's a continuing journey, I think. Yeah. So I was wondering because like I really like this new style, but like that's not to discredit your old style either, But I do
Yeah.
kind of like this sort of like kind of glassy, sort of pensive, kind of like alt rock angle
Mhm.
too. I think it's just like it's really distinctive and in my opinion, just kind of like really it really kind of stands out. It's really kind of punchy.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always going to be like there's two walls and it's going to be pop, and this Used by You song is definitely like the most rock song I've ever put out and probably will. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um but it definitely does fluctuate, like, and then a brief epic is somewhere in the middle, and I think it does depend like kind of where I'm at in life. Like I'm in an era right now where I'm like really listening to old like nostalgic like songs I was listening to growing up, because I'm in a period of time where I feel very angsty and almost like I feel like a preteen again, and like things that are
Yeah.
happening to me in life. And so I think my music is reflecting that, like listening to Paramore and like My Chemical Romance and like old Taylor Swift and things like
Yeah.
that. But then sometimes like I'm a huge like Holly Humberstone fan, 1975 fan, like, and I think parts of A Brief Epic kind of, and Noah Khan as well. Like I have a folk side I love to listen to. So I think that acoustic alternative pop is always going to find its way in there. But I mean, I think even the next few songs I have coming out are kind of like they are sisters, they're not twins. Like they all like
Yeah.
know each other, but they've never really spoken. So it's
That's a good way of
it
putting it.
yeah. So it's definitely gonna be interesting. Like even in the next few months of putting out a lot of new music, and they all fit together, and they're all about a lot of the same things, but they're like just sonically a little bit different. So I think I'm just gonna keep doing that until I feel like, okay, I need to stick to something or change it up more.
Perfect. I guess the final thing I'll ask is, we're in February now. What does 2024 hold for you, Caroline?
Yeah, we're in it now. We are in it. It holds a lot of new music, releasing, I'm hoping more music than I've ever released in a year before. So excited about that. And got my first tour opportunity, which I'll be able to talk about soon, coming up in the spring, which will be super exciting. I've never toured before, so very excited to like get out there and do the thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think just growing as a songwriter in person and maybe get another cat. I don't know. We'll see.
Thanks very much for your time. Is there anything you'd like to add before I wrap up, or?
I think that's it. I think that's all I got. Used by you the February 23rd. That's all.
Perfect. Thanks very much
All
for
right.
your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So nice meeting you. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too. Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you liked it, please subscribe and stick around because we have plenty more like this coming soon.